Greetings, YouTube. No controversial subjects or news items today. I've had enough of that this week. The haters have been fast and furious on my comment threads about gay rights, about the Same-Sex Marriage Act out in California, the decision by Judge Vaughn Walker. So I've had my fill of dealing with that. So I thought I'd try to tackle a topic that was a little less controversial. I found myself in a conversation this week on a YouTube video comment thread that dealt with the nature of art. And the person doing the video made a statement. It was a quote, I believe, a literary quote from an author, that was that art is perfectly useless, which got me thinking. Is, in fact, art by its nature useless? Can art be useful as well as artistic? And his comment was that an object in hand has utility. This has a purpose. It is a cutting instrument. But if you take this object and you place it on a wall in a gallery so that people can come and see it and contemplate it, then it has gone from a useful object to an artistic concept. You have elevated it to art. You have engaged people in their appreciation of it. So you've created a larger conversation, a greater dynamic. And I found myself in disagreement for a number of reasons. Firstly, if you create something, anything, and you place it on a gallery wall or in an installation in a park or in the street somewhere where only one person may ever see it, and your purpose is to generate thought, emotional response in another human being, that object is not useless. Its use is to generate thought or engage an emotional state of mind. So the object has a purpose from its very conception. It just may not be what you would consider a utilitarian purpose, a particularly pragmatic or practical purpose. I love alliteration. And I chose this particular object right here, it's like my cold steel scimitar, very specifically, because I'm going to ask a couple of questions. Firstly is, do you think that art must be useless, or can art be practical as well as useful? That's my first question. My second question is, what is the most beautiful object you personally have ever beheld? Now, this object has to be an object. It cannot be a living thing. It must be something that was non-living, at least in its context as an object. Could have been living at one point, I guess. So a picture of a living object would count. And for me, my answer to the second question, because I've already answered the first one, is that the most perfect object I have ever seen, the most beautiful object I have ever beheld in my entire life, was a Japanese tanto. You know, a tanto is a knife, a blade. It's the smallest of the traditional Japanese bladed weapons, with the katana, the wakizashi, and the tanto was a three-blade trilogy that was worn by the samurai. And the tanto was the most pragmatic of the items in question. It was going to see the most use outside of battle. In fact, you probably wouldn't see a great deal of use for a tanto in battle, particularly if you had other weapons at hand. And it was in the Boston Museum of Art, and we had gone there for, my two roommates and I had gone there for a project that his girlfriend at the time had to do. So we were there so she could look at some artwork, so she could get a project done for college. And I had just come along because I had never been to the art museum. As we're wandering from room to room and checking out all the beautiful objects, most of which were not traditionally art, in my opinion. A lot of them had been items from history that were now appreciated as art, though they themselves may have been originally created as art. It's a multi-layered dynamic there, I admit. And they came to the Japanese room, and as part of the Japanese display, they showed off the accoutrements of the samurai, the tools that would have been used in the art of Bushido. And they showed armor and shields and helmets and, of course, the weapons. And one of the weapons they showed was a naked tanto blade. Now, most people probably don't know this, but the traditional Japanese blades of the katana, the wakizashi, and the tanto are designed to come apart. The handle is designed to be unwrapped and removed for cleaning. The whole thing fits together with a pin. It is not designed to go together once and never come apart like most Western knives, for example. This is an integral knife. It's one solid piece, and it's just got a wrap around the cord, the handle cord wrap. And so they just had this naked tanto blade, and it was slightly above eye level. And they had affixed it, so essentially it was floating on this glass, and a little card next to it describing it. And when this had been made, Europeans were pretty much still very much wrapped in the Middle Ages. It was prior to the Renaissance. And yet I considered this object to be the most perfect thing I had ever seen, to be the most flawless object I had ever beheld. I was completely and utterly enraptured. It is not hyperbole to say that I could not take my eyes off that blade. And when it was time for us to depart, my friends, not figuratively, but literally, had to grab my arm and pull me away from the display, because I would have just stood there until the museum closed. I never went back. At least not during that display. I've been back since then for other art shows. But the memory of that is in my head, and it will be forever. And I have never noticed an object that elicited such a reaction in me. I don't think I'm ever going to see such an object as the rest of my life. I could be wrong. I would be pleasantly surprised if I was. But for me, that moment, that absolute connection between myself and a smith 500 years in the past was complete and total. It was art, it was craftsmanship, it was a connection between two people separated by centuries. It was everything that art is supposed to be, everything that art at its heart is intended to do. And yet the man that made that blade never intended that. He was making a tanto blade, a tool. But he made a whole lot more.